Dear participants, it is a pleasure to be here today with you and share insights on the OECD work on SMEs and entrepreneurship and comment on what could be the benefits, the advantages for different players in the Thailand ecosystem to engage closer with this agenda at the OECD. The work I'm going to present you today is at the core of the agenda of the OECD Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities, whose mission is to help national, subnational governments, authorities, agencies to unleash the potential of all their entrepreneurs and SMEs. Its mission is to promote inclusive and sustainable growth in countries, regions, cities, local communities, boost local job creation, and implement also sound policies in the area of tourism. We engage widely with national and subnational governments, but we do place much emphasis on engaging with the business community, with association, industry experts, financial institutions, and all the key stakeholders that animate, that create, develop SME ecosystems. To do so, we use unique granular data, we build on policy expertise also across other OECD committees that develop relevant work for SME, entrepreneurship, regional and local development in order to increase the policy impact of the organization. How do we work? We serve through our analytical work, tailored country analysis, benchmarking, and development of legal instruments for main OECD committees. The Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship, on which I would like to provide you further information, as well as the Regional Development Policy Committee that has dedicated working parties on urban policy, rural policy, territorial indicators, as well as an expert group on multi-level governance. The Tourism Committee, which is one of the oldest committee in the OECD, it was created at the very early years of the OECD life. And it's a committee that has structured over time an important agenda related with statistics. It's a unique global reference in the development of tourism statistics, as well as policy analysis, policy advice, and knowledge sharing. And finally, the Committee on Local Employment and Economic Development that covers several areas related with the subject, including principles on the social economy, the assessment of how global events impact on local development, but it has quite of a strong emphasis on the question of skills development for job creation and job retention at the local level. Why a focus today on the Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship? Why, in the first instance, SMEs matter much to the OECD? The response is rather simple. SMEs across all OECD countries are essential, are key to inclusive growth, social and territorial cohesion. They represent 99% of all firms across OECD countries. They account for about 60% of jobs in the manufacturing sector and up to 75% when we look at the service economy. They account for between 50 and 60% of business sector value added across OECD countries. But it's not just a matter of their aggregate economic impact. They are of critical importance for the social cohesion and local communities. And this is widely recognized across OECD countries in such a way that a few years ago, they decided at the highest level, the OECD Council, to elevate what was earlier a working party on SMEs and entrepreneurship to a committee level, a committee on SMEs and entrepreneurship, recognizing to this agenda the highest priority at the level of other agendas in the OECD, such as related, for example, to trade, to innovation, to finance, financial market, etc. But the importance of SMEs is not only a structural one. It's also related to the trends that economies and societies are facing over the last years. So it is recognized that SMEs and entrepreneurs are key also for the adaptation of economy to such mega trends, and in premise, the green and the digital transition. And they are central for many reasons, because they are drivers of innovation. Entrepreneurs can introduce new solutions to societal challenges, but also because of their economic weight. The fact that on aggregate, they account, for example, for a very important share of greenhouse gas emission in OECD countries. We estimated, for example, in Europe, that SMEs account for 40% of greenhouse gas emission. Other organizations have estimated at the global level a weight of SMEs up to 50%. All of this means that there will be no net zero without SMEs. We need to have SMEs on board in order to provide effective responses to climate change and to make of these responses also an economic opportunity that does not widen gaps, but on the contrary, offer a new economic growth path that is inclusive, sustainable over the long term. These are some of the reasons why SMEs and entrepreneurship have been rising in the international agenda. And that was very evident, highlighted throughout the recent crisis, including the COVID-19 crisis, when across OECD countries, 20 to 40% of SMEs received some type of government support. But the rising importance of SMEs in the international agenda also stems from a long-standing demand by countries to have better frameworks, more effective tools to design and implement SME policies. There is a renewed urgency for a forward-looking policy agenda that supports SME resilience to shocks, that prepare entrepreneurs for the twin transition, but that also enables small businesses to adapt and thrive in a changing trade and investment landscape, in global value chains that are undertaking important reconfiguration. So what does it mean, given the importance assigned to SMEs and entrepreneurship in the OECD, to engage with the OECD Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship? It means contributing to, accessing, exchanging evidence, policy advice, participating to high-level technical policy dialogue, developing tools, international standards, and be part of multi-stakeholder platforms where knowledge is exchanged not only across policymakers, but also engaging, as I mentioned earlier, with all the main actors that develop, make a thriving SME and entrepreneurial ecosystem. The Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship, therefore, plays such a role. It's the global forum for policy analysis, dialogue, and exchange of good practices, and provides high-level policy guidance to country. It does so through horizontal work, by developing benchmarking tools, thematic analysis in different areas, from finance to green to digitalization to skills development to startups and scale-ups, SME participation in trade and global value chain. But it does so also by providing to country targeted analysis and support. And through this work, also setting standard and tools for effective monitoring and evaluation of policies. And Thailand, in fact, has been participating since some years to this dialogue, as I'm pleased to share that Thailand is a participant, so it's a regular member of the OECD Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship at the government level. Let me give you some example of the analysis, the reports, the tools that are produced. In the area of access to finance, for example, the OECD scoreboard on financing SMEs and entrepreneurs that also cover Thailand has become a unique global reference to access and analyze comparable data on debt financing instrument, on non-debt financing instrument, on conditions for SMEs to access finance, on conditions of payment, equity financing, etc. So it's a very important, it has become a very important tool used internationally to assess the state of SME access to finance across different countries, but also to identify whether there are emerging common challenges that may require further policy dialogue and exchange to be addressed, but it is also a way to identify opportunities for more effective policy making and intervention to sustain SME access to diversified financing instruments. In terms of legal instruments, the committee has developed two, a recommendation on SME and entrepreneurship financing, so that relate to the agenda I was just mentioning, as well as a very broad recommendation that cover the main relevant areas related with SMEs and entrepreneurship and provide guidance, high-level guidance across these areas. The OECD recommendation on SME and entrepreneurship policy is structured around three main pillars: policy coordination and governance, transitions and resilience, and access to resources. It therefore provides a normative framework against which much of the analytical work of the policy exchange takes place. This is for us a sort of navigation pen, a map on the desired direction of policy making. And therefore, when we do, for example, country level work, we use this type of instrument as a very important reference. The importance of the agenda is also evident by the fact that we had in June 2023 a ministerial meeting at the OECD under the theme Managing Shocks and Transitions, Future-Proofing SME and Entrepreneurship Policies. It was that meeting chaired by New Zealand. Importantly, we had nearly 50 countries participating with high-level participation at the level of ministers, of vice ministers. We had 27 countries, as well as other head of SME agencies and a large number of international organizations, but also small business organizations. And the final outcome of this ministerial meeting, the declaration on enhancing SME and entrepreneurship policies, places attention very much on the need for governments and for stakeholders to ensure a resilient SME population, as well as to enable all SMEs and entrepreneurs a successful green and digital transition. This is not the only way we are doing that. We are also promoting, as I mentioned earlier, dialogue through multi-stakeholder platform. Let me provide you a couple of examples. The OECD platform on financing SMEs and for sustainability that look at way practices, provides analysis, data, analytical work as to boost SME access to the increasing pool of sustainable finance. It gathers the OECD, governments, public development banks, private banks, fintechs, and importantly also small business and industry association. In a similar way, the Digital for SMEs Global Initiative is a platform that gather governments, large and small businesses, financial institution, industry expert, association, as to identify good practices, effective approaches, including through public-private partnership, to enable all SMEs to seize the benefit of digitalization. These are platforms that enable us to broaden the scope of analysis, to get the voice of many different players, and that then feed the work of the Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship. And we believe that this type of dialogue of public-private partnership is going to be increasingly important to address the paramount challenges that small businesses have to engage in the transition, to adapt to an increasingly volatile and uncertain global environment, but also to seize the opportunities that the rapid transformation, including in technology, can bring to them. And with this, I would like to thank you, and I stand ready to address further questions that you may wish to send me by email or through my OECD colleague. And I look forward to engage further in dialogue with all of you and ensure that Thailand can benefit from its participation to the Committee on SMEs and Entrepreneurship. Thanks a lot.